Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. RFK Refugees podcast. Ted here, John here. We did it, guys. We made it through 2020. John, how you doing, my friend? We are now in the first show of 2021. We had planned to do maybe one more show in 2020 because we all thought DC would have a coach by now. But such is life. Such is life. How are you, John? How was your holiday?
It's been great. I feel like we haven't seen or talked to each other in a while because we've taken a break from each other. A show, doing a weekly show. We took a 3-week Ted and John break, and now the magic's back. I feel like we're, I feel it's sizzling, popping off. It's popping off the screen. But I've been good. Break was great. Happy to have a show tonight. There's a little bit of stuff to talk about, and hopefully people call in and we have some engagement.
Yes, 202-905 as I try to pull up the number on the spot. It's been a while, folks. I apologize. I had all this pulled up.
202-905-0454.
0454. I'm sure it's in the bottom of the screen or top of the screen somewhere along those lines. I'm no longer driving the show anymore. Now it's all on producer Brian. So if anything looks wrong, just send your emails to Brian. No, I'm just kidding. I won't do that to Brian.
Do not. Do not.
Should we just jump right into it? It's so we expected. So I feel like we've gotten a sort of any new fans want to know what it was like to wait for the DC United Stadium. This was pretty much what it was like on a grander scale, on a much larger scale. We hope to have something done by this time. Well, we'll see about this time. We're gonna see. It will happen. DC will have a coach. Maybe it's Ben Olsen coming back. Maybe it's Chad Ashton. Maybe it's the guy that we literally did a whole show about. Interviewed his former team's fan in listen to that show if you want to hear a time in which we thought it was going to be.
It's gonna be a supporters group Twitter account that's gonna be the head coach.
Oh Lord.
I won't say which one of them.
Lord help us. But yeah, so the team did want to hire somebody by December. Right now, the latest is basically Golf has now written 2 articles that basically have said the exact same thing. Pineda is the front runner? Question mark. I feel like that was more sure maybe a couple weeks ago. It was very weird. Like I don't think we've talked to anybody since we've released that podcast. At least I don't think. And we released that podcast, and we're like, oh, it's going to be Armas. Armas is the front runner. And then it was like literally the next day after we released the podcast, it was like Henderson's the front runner. No, Pineda's the front. It was like all these different media outlets, from Columbus and Seattle, were basically reporting that their person that lives in their city currently and assistant coaches on their team was the front runner. So it's been, apparently there's been some other international players that have gotten in the mix. John, I guess on a scale of 1 to 10, because I have my thoughts on this, and I sort of made it known on Twitter. I'm going to expand a little bit on that. How worried are you about the fact that the team does not have a coach right now?
I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not worried. I think everyone should read the Golf piece. There's one bit of information that's of value. Who is still in contention doesn't really excite me. That it hasn't been chosen yet. Not optimal, but not super exciting. The thing that's of value to look at is to say that sources say that the amount that the salary offered by DC United is lower than average for all of these options that they're looking at. They're willing to pay for, proven excellence, but on the whole, they are looking to get by on a Ben Olsen level salary. Ben Olsen was bottom half of the league in salary. They're looking to replace him with a similarly salaried coach. I think that is informational. I think that's data that you can use. I don't think it is. I don't think this is similar to the Washington Nationals notoriously pay their manager almost nothing until recently, but up until now, ownership has seen it as a replaceable cog, and that all of the talent is the player, and the manager does almost nothing. Soccer is not like that, I don't necessarily think, and I don't necessarily even think that that's what ownership is thinking here. But it is informative that we are not looking to change the perception around spending on coaches here with all the options that we're looking at.
There have been plenty of questions about how much does this ownership group have? How much are they willing to spend? that has dogged them, I think, even since the stadium is built, even after they signed Wayne Rooney. How much money does this group have? How much money are they willing to put in? And now we're faced with the 2020 pandemic. We're faced with no crowds in stadiums. We're faced with budget shortfalls. We're faced with many of those things. It's not surprising to me that that's sort of what they're taking in, is that they're looking for a deal on a coach. And I do think also there is a sense that they're taking time. We don't know what the season's going to look like next year. Obviously, with the pandemic, there's the force majeure clause. I hope I am.
You got it right. It is not a player. It's not a name. So you got it. Force majeure.
Mm-hmm. Force majeure clause. I got something right. Pronunciation.
2021, baby.
new leaf, new year, new me. Anyway, so they have that clause. Who knows with the pandemic? Who knows when teams are allowed to come back? Who knows? Just so many different variables about this season. A lot's been made about the fact that the Super Draft is coming up, and you need a coach for the Super Draft. I would argue mostly in the Super Draft right now. The way the Super Draft is built, a lot of it's the talent's not in the college draft. It's all to come through the academies right now. Whoever DC gets in, they're going to get a top 4 pick. So it's still a good pick, but who knows if that player even then wants to stay here. There's still the option for them to then play the spring season and then come in. It's going to be a weird Super Draft because you don't know how many players are going to be like, yeah, I'll jump in, or they might all be like, hey, I got selected high in the draft. I think I'm gonna join. I would imagine a top 4 pick. I'll be very curious to see. Usually there's a generation Adidas signings. A lot of those things are happening. I don't know how all that's going to look. So from that perspective, considering all the unknowns of Super Draft, I'm not sure how much a coach really plays much into that. Particularly one coming right now, particularly any of the coaches in the league coming right now. There's also the notion that this roster is not going to change. I am sorry to those that think that they're going to demand it. And there was one nugget in the article too from Golf that they're looking for a forward to compete with Ola Kamara. That
Which says two things, right? Yeah.
So Ola Kamara's coming back, and I mean maybe that's a TAM level signing, but this team is going to be. I said in my tweet 90-95% the same. Obviously, but they're going to be basically the same. And that sort of is indicative of the fact that a coach coming in isn't really going to have a lot of choice or a lot of options. Maybe they have that if they get him, hire him quick enough. He has that option to have a say in that forward option. But I very much doubt it. And I think that's also playing maybe a little bit into it as well. Does a coach like Chris Armas, who, maybe feels hard done by Red Bull, was basically told what to do at Red Bull, here's your roster, figure it out. Is he really going to jump into another situation where he's basically got to do the same thing? He doesn't get much of a say in who the players pick. The players are basically picked, and it's about getting them into the lineup. Someone like Pineda, maybe for their first job, is like, yeah, that's something I don't even think about. I just want to be on the field and coaching. So that's sort of playing into it. At a scale of 1 to 10, I'm about a 3. It's annoying.
That's your concern level.
Yeah, it's annoying. I would like it to happen. I'd like to be talking about that coach. What he could bring to the team, what we could see differently from this team. I am not on the. I am trying to shy away. I was very negative on this team in 2020. We were all very, very negative on this team in 2020.
Yep.
Ben Olsen's out. It is. I am like, let's. And I get laughed at by a certain DC United player when I say this, but you do have to, in a sense, see how this plays out. Who they hire, who they bring in, how that team lines up. I was listening to Extra Time Radio, and I find it interesting that team looked really good towards the end of 2020. They looked like a playoff team because they started putting guys in natural positions. And maybe that's all this team needs right now is just throw some guy in there that says, okay, Ariel's a right winger. He's going to play on the right. You're going to play here. You're going to play here. And maybe that's all you need. Because that clearly was a huge issue with this team in 2020 was guys out of position. So I don't know. I'm not jumping on the negativity bandwagon yet with the coach.
Yeah, my negativity is only the fact that they have no money. And that's something we're all just going to have to live with. And that's going to be a lot of teams. And that's going to be a lot of sports. And that's just going to be the way it is for at least a year. We'll see how long it can be. I think just to reiterate for people who do not follow this at insanely high levels and are kind of just like, I know Ben Olsen got fired, but what's going on? So the options continue to be Gonzalo Pineda from Seattle, Pat Noonan from Philadelphia, and Chris Armas, formerly of Red Bulls. Chris Armas is also under consideration in Toronto, where also so is Ben Olsen, but we'll talk about Ben in a second. Jill Ellis appears to be out. Chad Ashton is a long shot. Rodolfo Borrell is the Man City assistant coach. I think probably would be a long shot based on everything we know. And it appears that originally Ben Olsen was supposed to be part of the conversation, but it appears that he is less. I don't think he's doing any of the interviews. I think he's just sort of not involved like that. We also found out today that, and I saw you actually got tweeted at by Goff about it, that is it Ashton and
Thornton, they're here till
Thornton
2021.
Thornton are under contract for next year, so that's good. I think as you were talking about, like if not, then they're getting kind of hosed here as far as finding gainful employment next year with another team. So we're still in the land of wait and see. The December deadline has come and gone. We are who we thought we were as far as salary are coming. And like you said, I think another thing that came out of this article that's important is that Gelman Rivas seems gone. Ola Kamara is going to stay here. They're going to find someone to compete. So that means they're not signing someone that will for certain put Ola Kamara on the bench. So again, do not look for a Wayne Rooney signing. Look for another TAM level.
Maybe a player in the draft. Who knows?
Man, if a draft player out of a no college season can compete with Ola Kamara, I would be surprised. The forward record, other than Daryl Dike coming out of Orlando, like the records for forwards coming out of the draft is not fantastic.
I think the draft is going to be a little wild because I think there's going to be a lot of BSing. I think so.
Oh God! Can you imagine what this is going to be like from a TV, like a vamping perspective? Taylor Twellman's going to be like, well, we don't have any tape on him because there was no season, but his Twitter account is funny, so we've got that as a positive. I don't know what they're going to talk about.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We are going to try to get some people who actually watch college soccer. I'll be honest, so I came into last draft. I knew who Daryl Dike was because I grew up, supporting the Virginia Cavaliers. I watched him at UVA. I watched some of those games. I watched some of the tournaments. So I knew who he was. This year, I can't name anybody. I don't know because there was no season. There was no season to be like, oh, hey, this guy could be good. If we could get a Daryl Dike, I mean, maybe we got something. So maybe if we can find that type of player in the draft, then maybe we do have something.
And the last two bits of news from that article that came out earlier this afternoon, team still in negotiations with Odoyatsum and Felipe. I think those will both get done if they're continuing to happen. And also there's a potential that we sign Michael Edwards, who's a former academy player who played Wolfsburg 2. We have his rights. He'd play center back. I think that seems like something that would happen. That's a low cost, it's not super risky. He wouldn't start. You could potentially have something over time. I think it's good to have some youth in the defensive positions because we're old otherwise. And, eventually Birnbaum and Briant probably his last season this year. So they've got to figure out a succession plan internally. They still could look out externally to find, a better player. I think I have no problem with that either, but I think there's two positions that they have not a lot of depth in from a youth perspective, and that is at center back and at forward. There's just no you could say Griffin Yao is a forward, and he is technically, but as far as a striker, goal scorer, we don't develop those. That hasn't happened here in a while.
A lot of wingers and a lot of defensive midfielders, and I think that's and I'm going maybe on a little bit of a caveat here. That's what I want most out of, I guess, either this coaching decision or the next few years. What's the plan? This team has been so much around Ben Olsen, so much around that. Give me an idea. If it's doing what Philly's doing, if it's doing what FC Dallas is doing, I'm all for that.
Yep.
I'm all for Yao. I'm all for Moses Nyman. I'm all for like Paredes. I'm all for those guys getting more time if we're not going to spend money developing those players and sell them abroad. It's a seller's market right now for MLS. The pandemic is not just affecting MLS; it's affecting the whole country. And yes, players like Weston McKennie, players like Pulisic and all those guys are playing really, really well. Even Pulisic was before the pandemic, but those guys are playing really, really well. But part of the reason teams are looking at them is they say, hey, there's talent here and we don't have to pay a whole lot for it. And because there's definitely an undervalued market and guys are proving themselves. So they're making it worth it. That's why Brian Reynolds went to Juventus. That's why you're seeing a lot more of it happen. And DC needs to take advantage of that. If they want to maybe grow themselves a little bit out of the shell. We'll see what no team, and this has been raised a point, of all the work that Philly's done, no team has been able to sort of create a pipeline where they can sell and then invest that back into the team and then go out and get players and win championships. That's going to be sort of that next step. Who can do that? What type of team can do that?
So FC Dallas is selling players that have like 9 starts for $6 million.
Yeah.
So that what a world. Before we move on, and this is sort of going to lead into, and this is sort of a reward for the very few people that are watching live from a video perspective right now. I got a present for myself, and I wanted to show you what it was, Ted. And I'm gonna do that. You can say what it is when I turn around. You can describe it.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh man, he did this just to annoy me, folks.
I did. It
was entirely to annoy me.
I spent $45 to annoy Ted. That's what happened. I'm wearing a long sleeve authentic Jared Jeffrey jersey, which I long been searching for in my collection. I'm very excited to have gotten it. Thank you to James Lambert for alerting me to it, and for facilitating making it happen. Speaking of jerseys, this isn't on the rundown, but I figured I can do a transition here from talking about my awesome jersey. It appears that long sleeve jerseys are back. This was news apparently that broke in February, and I missed it, or I knew it and then forgot it. But in next February, or last February, Pablo had an article talking about third jerseys and long sleeve jerseys. It appears that you have to sell over 100,000 jerseys in order to get the right to have a third jersey, which we do not, I believe. Yeah. I think that's safe to assume.
Is it including 2019 jersey sales of Wayne Rooney?
That's a good point.
Maybe I don't know. Who knows?
That is a good point, and something I did not think about. And maybe that's
that actually came from Merritt Paulson, who's the most active owner on Twitter, I think, of any MLS team or any professional team I think I've ever seen.
For better and for worse, that is a true fact about Merritt Paulson. But I am bummed because I think Ted also is probably bummed. I buy all of the. I didn't buy the Hanes T-shirt, but I buy all of the jerseys. I don't buy any other sport stuff, and I don't go anywhere anymore. So I've got money to spend on these jerseys, and they're just not. If the teal jersey that got made, bought it. Anything that comes out, I buy it. If they're gonna the Mitchell and Ness jerseys that were supposed to come out, I was ready, locked and loaded.
Whatever happened to those?
The credit card was out.
We will do a full investigation into what happened.
three part podcast series.
What happened?
Well, about that, I was wondering because my friend found a new in bag with tags 1998 DC United home jersey, like new, never been worn, and she bought it. And I was wondering, I was like, are these like the secret Mitchell and Ness jerseys that got buried last year because no one was going to buy them? I don't know. But suffice it to say, it does not appear that DC United is going to get I think they're going to get a long sleeve jersey. I think that's just league wide. That probably, I would not imagine some teams get them and some teams don't. That would be weird. But a third jersey is probably not on the cards, which is a bummer because I believe the last one we had was 2009. It was the red jersey, which I think I have in my closet signed by some number of DC United players.
I got the Dero red jersey. It's
awesome, right? Like it's a really cool jersey.
It's a cool jersey. I put it on a few pounds and I can't fit into it
anymore. Same. That is a tight one. That particular one is a tight one. So that's probably not going to happen for either of us. But keep your eyes peeled. If you have the money to apparently now it's like there's an incentive to supporting your team. If you want more cool stuff, you've got to spend money on it. That sucks, but I think that's the way they're doing it.
We'll see if DC does the. I want a better away jersey. Just give me something better than that.
Oh, we'll get one. I think that's this year, right? I think that's
this year. Yep, it's the home jersey was last year, which I'm still looking to pick up at some point, and the away jersey is this year. Sorry, so home jersey next year, 2022, away jersey this year. So, yep.
All right. So let's go on to the next. This one's kind of short. Ben Olsen, potentially a manager at Sheffield Wednesday. Bookies favorite. I think he's 8-1 favorite to become the manager of Sheffield Wednesday, who I believe are in last place or second to last place in the third division. I don't think it's the championship. I think it's League One.
Yeah, no, they're championship. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
What that would be amazing. I really want this to happen. I want it to happen a lot for like 9 reasons. But I don't know that it will. But he's also in the mix with TFC still too.
So the funny thing about this is not the first time like bookies have like put Ben Olsen as like a potential manager at like an English club when something happens. This has happened like before. We've all kind of laughed at it. The part that was like, oh hey, look, English bookies, you know, they'll you know, they put bets for anything. And then it was like Pablo Maro saying, oh yeah, there's been contact. And it's like, wait, what? So they've actually like reached out. I mean, that doesn't mean like, oh, we're going to hire you. I mean, DC's talked to 50 people at this point and they're only going to hire one person, but that's just kind of funny that it's like even gotten to that point.
Yep. So that's something to look forward to. Chris Armas and Ben Olsen also on the hook still for TFC. There are lots of open positions right now in the league, aside from Atlanta with Heinze. There are other. LA is still not necessarily chosen. Greg Vanney looks like the leader in the clubhouse for that one, but
yeah, maybe Miami. Who knows? Miami's like the weird one where it was like the coach thought he had been fired. They got out and then they like basically put out a statement saying, no, he hasn't been fired yet. He's fine. We're just, you know, we were disappointed this year. And it's like, oh, okay. So what are you going to do? So anyway, trust me, this pandemic is going to have an impact. I guarantee you the reason he was not fired was because it's like, I don't know if we can go out and hire another coach because we can't sell tickets this year. And leading into that is the MLS force majeure clause, which we can.
Wonderful, Ted.
Yes.
Good job.
You like that professionalism.
I did. We're, 3 weeks off and only getting better. So we were supposed to start, apparently camps were supposed to start January 21st. So pretty soon. That is not going to happen now. You can count on that for sure. So basically what happened was MLS last year before the season said, I know that we just agreed to CBA, but it's not ratified yet. And we'd like to reopen negotiations due to the pandemic. And the players did so. They understood that there was likely to have to be some changes to the agreement that they had just hammered out, I think maybe 6 weeks earlier than when they had to go back into negotiations. They agreed to a 5% reduction in salary cut and a delay of the new TV deal. They were going to get an increased amount of money from the TV deal, the current TV deal, as well as the next one. And they put that off for a year. It appears that 5% does not come close to touching the deficit from no gate, from not having anybody at the stadiums. But there was an athletic article that I encourage everyone to check out. It is extensive, and there's lots of quotes from unnamed sources, which are always, what are you going to do? I want to read this really quick. Subscribe. We're not gonna give the whole article away, but I think that we're probably fine to do this. This is sort of the nut of the story that's really important. So, just to explain the force majeure clause, basically it's like act of God. If this happens, we reserve the right to blow up whatever we said we were going to do and renegotiate, which is where we're at now. So this is sort of the bulk of it here. These imminent talks will carry a different tenor compared to previous negotiations last year. While the discussions ahead of the MLS's back tournament were cast by the backdrop of a dormant sports landscape, the world has a better sense of how the pandemic is impacting life, both economically and socially. Even after the league and players agreed to wage cuts, MLS clubs, including Atlanta, Cincinnati, and Minnesota, spent multi-million-dollar transfer fees in the secondary transfer window. The source with knowledge of the players' side of this saw the continued spending as an indication that ownership was largely unaffected financially. The ones suffering are the players, their families, and the staffers who have been laid off, the source said. The team's valuations may be down significantly, but I'm also just as sure that they're going to be right back where they were in 2 years. This is just a money grab. If it were a real cash flow issue for them, then they would be adjusting the way they're spending on players. Here's the big one to me. The source added that they knew of multiple owners who were wary of invoking force majeure and further fracturing the relationship between the league, plus by the nature of single entity structure, its clubs and its players. They added that bringing both parties back to the table could bring MLS onto the precipice of a work stoppage, which would further complicate any timeline to a kickoff of a 21 campaign. So that would certainly make it so that we don't need a coach right away if that was the case.
No, and I think that is playing a little bit into this as well. I do, yeah.
So the players are. I understand that they are saying, if it was so bad, you wouldn't still be continuing to sign players in the way that you are. I think that there are some teams that are in a better position than others. So I think that most likely the poor owners, the the less rich millionaires and billionaires that own MLS franchises are probably the ones driving this mostly. Like the ones that are saying, we've got to go back to the negotiations table. We've got to do force majeure. I am not as solvent as some of the other owners, so I'm gonna need a league to do this. So the fact that some owners are still able to take advantage of the financial situation to better their teams was foreseeable and is the way it goes. But I think that this is really going to be about the teams that are less flush and owners that are comfortable away from their franchise. Like they're able to backstop small losses, not just Arthur Blanks, like that's the obvious one, but I think there are many ownership groups that are probably capital rich enough to not be destroyed by 1 or 2 seasons of huge revenue losses where they can bounce back. DC United, I don't know.
I think DC United is in this boat of the force majeure. It would not surprise me. I think they look at it from the perspective, their training facility was supposed to launch this year. The pandemic, caused delays in that. That apparently is back up and back going. Who knows what impact though that has had? You've got the stadium; they are still having to finance. So they are heavily. They are one of the more. It's more just to think about wealth with this team. It's about leverage. This team is very, very heavily leveraged. So it would not be surprised if they are in that boat of teams. And if you look at their reduction in spending, they held on to Jordi Reyna. They're holding on to Ola Kamara. They're holding on to. Probably maybe less surprisingly, players like Emil Assad and some other ones they've signed to sort of contracts. But they basically say, we can't really go out and spend. We got guys here who are good. We think we can be better. Let's keep them here.
I want good players. We have good players at home. That's what's happening. But also all of those players are being paid either MLS funny money or MLS single entity. Paul Arriola is probably one. Is there another player that's beyond league spend?
They're definitely. I mean, there's the guy they paid $5 million, the highest transfer fee they've ever paid.
Edison Flores, the guy that I always forget exists because he was sort of a ghost for a lot of the last year, and I didn't get to see him in person, so I always forget that he exists. So other than that, though, I think those are the two cost centers on the roster for them, where they're actually like just burning money for this year and next year.
Yeah, and it's. This is really, I'm more sad, I guess, than anything about this, because this really was going to be this CBA signing. This one was different than a lot of the other ones. The other ones had been like, basically, we're coming to a work stoppage. The players want more, and then they kind of get peanuts. And basically, the owners are like, well, either take this deal or leave it. And the players are like, well, we can't really afford to not play right now, so we're going to go ahead and take it. That's what the past two before this last one. And this one actually felt like the players got some stuff. They got, increased revenue from the TV deal. They got in subsequent TV deals. They got more charter flights. So there was more like quality of life improvements. So this really felt like a sort of turning point, I guess, between the owners and the players and everybody sort of being happy. There was sort of you thought maybe the influence of new owners that were coming in that were not the ones who have, lost all this money, who are new and like, no, we need to do this. And there's also a change in how the league operated and say, we want to be a selling league. We want to sell to Europe, making it more attractive for players to come in. And all of that seems now to have just kind of just flown. Maybe not the selling part. I think you're going to have more teams interested in selling players now to try to like recoup some losses. That all seems to have evaporated in the span of a year. It's been rather incredible and sad, to be honest. So I thought the last CBA negotiation, I feel like we're heading to a work stoppage. Then it didn't happen. There was a deal done pretty quickly. Then the pandemic happens. I think we're going to have a work stoppage. I don't think the owners are going to mind because they won't be able to have fans in the stadium till at the very earliest late summer. So they aren't going to mind, the fact that there's at least some of them are. Maybe I'm sure the Atlantas, the rich owners of the world might be a little bit more on the no, we should make a deal, we should play. But they are not going to mind holding out because basically there's no reason to have fans in there. I think the players are kind of done. They have come in good faith to the bargaining table now, and they have basically been slammed in the face multiple times. And I think it's you kind of just give up. You're like, you know what? That's it. Fool me once, shame on. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And I think they're at that point. So,
yeah, I'm okay with them deciding that this is where they want to push it in. Like I don't think there's probably a better time for them ever than right now, because there's, there are some I mean, they had the return to play and it was not enjoyable for a lot of players. I don't know how I don't know what the plan is yet for this year. But if they're ever going to say, like, we're not going to take an additional cut and put ourselves in a worse position again when we come out of this.
I think it's how anybody would react. I mean, basically what happened was the CBA is like when you finally get promised that promotion you want at your job and you've spent, 5-6 years and finally you're getting enough money. Then the pandemic happens, and yet you're still seeing, some signs that there's still plenty of money, yet, you get denied that promotion. You rightly get upset. And I think the players are rightfully upset and rightly, done with this.
Yep.
So we'll see. I mean, I feel like I've been wrong before, and there is a lot. I think some people have said, "Oh, players can go play anywhere." I'm like, it's not that simple. Maybe USL scoops up a couple of them for a little bit of short-term contract. No one wants to, no player, anybody in a job wants to move. Nobody wants to move away. Some maybe, they're, we'll move. It's fine. But majority are like, no, I have kids here. I have family here. I'm happy here. I want to stay here. I don't want to, have to pick up my stuff and move. No team is going to sign then also, a short-term contract on a player, with the idea that they're going to move. That's going to be harder,
Also, what if they get hurt? So these are players that are under contract. If they go somewhere else, that contract would be null and void. And
with Polliola, would you want to risk, going to another club and getting hurt after you just came back from major injury? You don't want to do that. So the players are still kind of in a tough spot. It's not like, I think there's like sort of this mastery of the free market. You can go anywhere you want. You can do it. It's not that simple. It's never that simple. So I still think I would put maybe about a 50-50 shot right now. I think there'll be some form of work stoppage. It's happened in the past. Full on strike, everybody picket lines. I'm not that convinced yet. I don't think the season starts on time. I don't think it starts on time anyway with the pandemic. I think they were overshooting that tremendously. And the question is going to be, when are fans let in? And whether hopefully we get some semblance of a normal season this year. Do we get Open Cup? Do we get Champions League? All those other things, all those other questions.
My bet, if we're betting today on January 4th, is that we get half of a season. Yeah. Due to both due to Corona, but also due to work stoppage. I think it's going to be pushed further and further. So we'll see. I mean, I hope not certainly from our podcast perspective.
Yeah, man, it was hard. 2020 was rough.
It really was.
Oh man, we had some great guests, but I think they would all. I'm sure one guest we had would love it if the season would come back to a normal basis. So
yep. So we got some questions in the chat. Want to make sure we get to those. Ryan Johnson says, thoughts on signing DeAndre Yedlin? Unlikely, but we need a right back. I actually saw that on Twitter today when I was searching the old hashtag, and that is not going to happen here. It'd be great. I would, sure, absolutely, why not?
Yeah.
But I think that is unlikely to happen. I bet he goes back to Seattle.
I don't think he goes back to Seattle. I think he goes. There are clubs out there that are flush. Austin is flush with of TAM and GAM and all that other stuff.
I guess he's still young. You're right. He's too young for the go home and retire.
No, it would definitely be a move. He would want to get paid, and Seattle is very tied up in a lot of players, and you look to a team that maybe hasn't spent a whole lot that can look for that option. A team like Nashville, I heard, has been tossed around. One thing they've been doing, they've been trading a lot of international spots for Gam and Tam, or Gam, I guess it's now. And there's no more Tam. I don't know why I keep saying that, but they're trading up a lot of those spots. So I think that's a safe bet to maybe have him go there. But I very much doubt he comes to DC.
Yeah, no, probably not. So we've got a little bit of Spirit news, but would you rather do the bit of front office news for DC United first?
Let's do that, and then we got a couple Spirit items that we can talk about.
Also, call us at 202-905-0454. You want to talk about the coach situation? You want to talk about potential work stoppage or anything else? Just give us a call.
Yep, give us a call. Talk about the team. Talk about how you're feeling. How you feeling? What's your 1 out of 10 on how worried you are about the team?
And 1 out of 10 on how awesome my Jerry Jeffrey jersey is, and how maybe you'd like to buy it off of me.
-10 on that one, my friend. Let me just tell you. Okay. All right. DC. Good news. So, in a bit of good news, and maybe I feel like I'm not sure what this represents as far as finances but it is from the historical perspective. Danita Johnson has been hired as former head of business operations, formerly with the LA Sparks. That this is a good move, and this is a nice move from the sense that it's the first Black female head of business operations for MLS. And that's what you want to see. You want to see those types of moves. And I'm excited to have her here. It's a move that kind of makes you kind of turn your head like, wow, that's like from a off the field perspective, that's a pretty aggressive move. She was very, very well liked with the WNBA, helped grow that league a lot, and certainly with the LA Sparks. So very, very good thing to see for the team, and does kind of make you wonder. That kind of made me wonder about the finances, because I had to think she had to be in demand based on everything I heard. So it kind of one of those other things. So
yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I think like all things, the WNBA is probably undercapitalized. So you might be surprised at what you were. I mean, I don't want to speculate on her salary, but I think that it's possible that they were able to make that happen without breaking the bank. It will be interesting to me to see what, we still don't really understand what the scope of the layoffs were for DC United in 2020 and what their plans are to bring them back. How much is the skeleton crew still running things on the other parts of the organization? Mm-hmm. We'll probably find that out here next year, but overall, like you said, great to make history in that way. It's one of those things where it's unfortunate that it hasn't happened already, but someone's got to be first, and it's us. So that's great.
Yep.
And I think that unfortunate time to come in to be responsible for business operations during the middle of a pandemic after after the league just lost $1 billion last year, supposedly. So it's a tough task, but we're excited that she's here to do it. So that's a good news thing. Also, that happened today, sort of aligned with how much money does DC United have and how in debt are they. It appears that there's dirt moving finally in Loudoun for the training center. Yes. Which has not happened. Now January 21, we're getting kicking on that. That's great. That is something that we've been excited about for a while, as far as making it more attractive. Although DC United no longer training at RFK and training at St. James, which is an indoor facility. Probably a little bit better, probably less depressing. There's probably bathrooms and locker rooms and whatnot. So that's going on, but it will be great once the team actually has a base of operations, even though it's all the way out in Loudoun. I think it'll be beneficial to the organization.
Beneficial in many ways as far as attracting players and also for the academy and having all of that. So definitely a long time coming. This has been something they have fallen behind the rest of the league in a lot of ways. So I'm sure the St. James is nice, but it will be nice for them to have sort of their own facility and their own place.
Yep. So one more bit of DC United news. The re-entry draft, the first round didn't do anything, like we sort of said. No one was anything. In the second round, we picked up Adrian Perez from LAFC.
Correct. And you have on the rundown that he is signed. He is not signed.
Just drafted.
He is selected. So the way the second round works is that if the first round, yes, you basically you pick up that option on the contract, and that is your player now. With the second round, I think you have a week to make an offer, to make like a bona fide offer to that player to sign and bring him in. So
We're past that if that's the case.
Well, you don't know whether, I mean, they still allow sort of contract negotiations to continue. You just have a week sort of to make an offer, and then that player can basically go wherever they want. So I would imagine they had that offer ready and said, here's the offer, let us know. And maybe he's like, oh, maybe I'll look around USL for a little bit, or they come to the negotiating table. So,
I would say with 1 goal and 3 starts over 2 years and a history in the indoor league, I think that he'll take whatever contract East United offers him.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why I took him. So, I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens, but he's so far no official announcement that he has been signed. So right now he has been selected. It's I remember they took who did they take? Was it Kaku? I think, or no, it wasn't Kaku. It was someone. They took somebody else from Red Bull in the reentry draft in the second round. And basically he was like, I'm going off to Europe. I'll have to look up who that was. But basically, there's no guarantee you sign the player. And like I said, a lot of people were, were yelling about this move. And I'm like, look,
really?
Look at that. Yeah, there were people that were upset about that. Trust me. There are people. And I'm like, go look at the list of players in the reentry draft and tell me who you would sign, who you would want to bring in. It's slim pickings because a lot of the guys, are free agents. So they go to the free agency. So the reentry draft, I have a strong inkling. I will give it 5 years of still existing before it either takes on a new form or they retire it completely.
They just need to expand free agency to a more robust amount of players.
Yeah, I really don't. I don't get it. I'm like, maybe I could see basically it going to where we're just going to have the first round where you can pick up the option. And then after that, it's like, okay, everybody's a free agent. Yeah. So, because that's really, that's the only people that are guaranteed to get signed. I guarantee you it's going to become, it was one of those things that sort of gave simulated free agency with one of the old CBAs. And now that they have free agency, it's like anyone you would want to sign, even Adam Dwyer, those types of guys, I've been in the league long enough that they can now, and that's even going to drop the sort of years of service, so to speak. So, and age as well. So it's headed to a swift retirement. Let me just say. All right, now we can talk Spirit real quick.
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember, was the Kelly O'Hara trade announced before the last time we had a show? I think it was.
Yes.
I think it seems like a while. It hasn't been that long. So the bit of news that has occurred, Emily Sonnet was traded to the Spirit. I believe she was under roster in Orlando, although she played no games. The trade was for Maggie Daughtery Howard and 2 first-rounders, one this year, one I believe in 2023. Mm-hmm. I think that's correct. So the defense is just stacked now. The defense for the Spirit is absolutely silly. They're going to probably play a 5-person backline, 5-woman backline. They have it's tough to say. They've got Kelly O'Hara probably playing right back. Tegan McGrady still at left wing back, and then you have Emily Sonnet, you have Sam Staub, and you have Paige Nielsen, who all I don't know who you take out of that lineup. So questions abound. Offensively, still not quite as set up as they are defensively, but Richie's got a lot of options and choices to make from a formation perspective next year.
Very, very, very interesting sort of the build from the back. It's almost like he had such a high flying attack with Ashley Sanchez, Mallory Pugh and Rose Lavelle, and now it's like, nope, we're actually just going to go straight to the back line and make that strong. And but they still do have some good attacking players. So the Spirit are making moves, and they're not sitting. You kind of thought, I think we all kind of thought, okay, we're going to, build on this, we're going to not make many moves, but maybe we pick up a couple players over there. They've done sort of wholesale change. Rose Lavelle's gone. Mallory Pugh was already gone, I think.
She's double gone now. She's in Chicago now.
Yeah, she's in Chicago. You still have obviously Ashley Sanchez. She's kind of your attacking player of the future. Then they brought in some more international talent. I do think there is a sense, I think, from the team that they want to make sure the players they get, because we're going to have the Olympics this year. So that's something else that was normally be in 2020 that is now in 2021 is the Olympics. So some players may be missing. So it's all about trying to build up your back line and sort of weather that storm in the NWSL. So and also on off the field news, we should say why Michelle Kang has been expanded to be the new owner of the team,
or part owner.
Part owner, yes. So she has bought a stake in the team, which is good to see. It's good to see investment in the team and local investment as well, which is always very, very good. I love local investment as opposed to some guy who owns a Magic Jack in Orlando buying up the team and then moving them to someplace in Florida. So
that's a nugget. That's a nugget. I
went deep, man. I went deep in my soccer knowledge, my American soccer knowledge for that one. If you know what I'm talking about, please call in. That would be.
Yeah, but yeah, it's good. It's good. More capital is great for the team. They want. I continue to say that you can become a world power in soccer in the women's game for not a whole bunch of money, and you can't do that in men's soccer. You can't do that in almost anything else. This is the only sport that has a full international market that you can, and there's no necessary, and there's the monetary restrictions aren't there like they are in other leagues. You could buy your way to a world power.
Mm-hmm.
So
and we're seeing it in Europe. We're seeing a lot of these other teams investing in. So we're seeing that in a lot of the NWSL, I think, is going to start to feel threatened here very, very quickly. And we're already starting to see them feel a little threatened because there's been a lot of more investment in England. You know, we have players, big time U.S. national team players playing in Europe and apparently maybe not coming back. That's sort of the big thing there was all sort of part of their U.S. soccer contract that they had to come back, once the season started. Maybe they could stay a little bit, but they all had to eventually come back. So
Alex Morgan already came back, didn't even stay the full season.
Yeah. Well, she wasn't playing too, right?
She played a little bit. She scored her first goal. And then I think what they said that her big achievement was apparently the women's team for Spurs was playing at some crappy facility, and Tottenham had just built a new top of the heap training facility, and they're like, why aren't we playing there? This is stupid. And then ownership was like, yeah, you're right. We should do that. And then she got the team situated, and then said, I'm going home. Goodbye.
Yeah. Yep. And that's sort of the nature too about a lot of teams. A lot has been made about a lot about Liverpool and their investment, and there's sort of a mix of investment in between the clubs. So yeah, it's the same way in the NWSL too. I think there's definitely a difference in investment. And who knows, maybe we'll see. Did you ever read that story about Rain potentially moving to like Miami? Or one of the owners was like saying that, and it was all big. They're like, no, we're not doing that. But keep on the lookout for that.
I'm trying to remember which it was a celebrity owner.
Yeah.
Who was it? I'm trying to look quickly. Of course, the report on the NWSL page doesn't have who it was. It was, I forget who it was. I don't know. It was like Tony Parker, maybe. I feel like maybe that's right. And then they were like, no, we're not doing that. Don't worry. We're not. Why would we just, we've spent a lot of money here in the market, and we looking to build another stadium or a training center. So we're not moving. So I get that they could just, OL Reign could just buy another franchise. The Olympic Sports or whatever the name of their group is could just buy another team and put them in Miami. The expansion is going to continue. So I don't think they don't necessarily, I think that maybe people are sensitive to that because of the way the franchise has been in the past, but now there's foreign money interested in ways that they weren't before. Barcelona was the long specter of interest in American women's soccer. We're talking about building a team forever. I think the final hang up was they wanted to have Nike jerseys despite, or they wanted to have jerseys of their making. I think I don't remember who it was now, but they couldn't because of who the jersey provider was at that time for NWSL. So stupid reason, but that's not happening. It's funny that Mallory Pugh played like 2 games for Sky Blue. One of them was a goal, and when she scored against Washington in the fall series, and that was the last thing she did for them before she went to Chicago. So
a lot of her story is interesting because I mean she was supposed to be the next the next big deal. Like she was like touted. She came in and I think as a teenager and scored, and now she's like on her like third club, and it's like, what's going on. So I'll be curious to watch and see maybe if she finds her feet in Chicago. It was supposed to be the Sky Blue was supposed to be the reset. Like, okay, we're gonna reset, fresh team, fresh, fresh everything, and it didn't last very long. So yeah, but unless we get any last minute calls coming in, which I think usually is kind of how this works. I think we're gonna wrap up the show. John, did you have anything you wanted to add before we close out?
No. Thank you for your service, Uli Segura. I don't know if he was already taken by Austin by the time. I think he probably was. But that's I think we're in sort of a holding pattern for news. I think for a little bit. With the fact that the league is now going into negotiations with the players, so it remains to be seen when our next show will be. We're sort of playing things by ear. We don't want to do shows without content, so it'll sort of look to the news, and when there's something that happens, that's where you'll find us.
Yes, and
like the bat signal.
Watch DC drop their coach announcement tomorrow. Like,
yes.
I'm fully expecting that to happen. Yes. RFUrefugees.com. That's where the show will be posted. We will work to get more blog posts. We've been bad about it.
There's nothing to talk about right now. So when there's something to talk about, we will.
Yeah. And we will catch you guys down the road. Vamos.